book lovers, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're talking about all the books that I've read in March, in my March wrap up. And as always, I like to start with my statistics because I don't know, I'm a sucker for statistics. I finished 7 books and I started an 8th one. I won't really talk about that one though. It's just important for another thing that I'll tell you in a second. That's why I wanted to say I read 7.5 books. I listened to one of those books, so excluding that book and also the half book I'm not counting, I read 2,350 pages and my average rating was 3.82, which was quite high. And I will say I did read actually really good books when I look at here, but it didn't feel like the best reading month. Maybe because I didn't read that many books, to be honest. I read mainly romances, and I would say 2 of those books I actually don't really know in what category to put them, so I just said others. And I also read many books that were part of series. And now to the best news ever, I feel like. Guys, I never did so well with my monthly TBR. I finished 5 out of the 6 books, and I started the 6th book. That's why I wanted to include that, not in part of that I'm going to talk about it, because I only read half of the book. And you can see how thick that book is. So I read about half of the book. I just wanted to mention it because, guys, I almost finished my TBR. I am quite proud of it, I'm not gonna lie. So with these successful statistics, let's go and actually talk about the books that I read in March. The first book I read is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, which is the second book in the Rose Hill series. This is all single dads. I think it's gonna contain 4 books in total, and 3 are out by now because the 3rd book came out in March, and I wanted to read this so I could also read her new release. I will say that the series didn't start the best for me. I didn't really like the first book, but I'm glad to say that I enjoyed this one a lot more. So in this one, our single dad is Weston Bellman, and he has 2 very cute children. He's very surprised when the very famous country singer Skylar Stone is in the small town, and she's actually there to just get away from it all. She just had enough with the press and all the pressure, and also her managing team. Awful. This book contains a lot of self-growth, a lot of finding out what you actually want, who you are, which I really liked in this book. I also liked the kids and what role they played. I also liked the whole setting. Rose Hill definitely grew on me in this one, and you 100% get small town vibes in here. And I also really liked the dynamic of the 2. I think I would have loved just a bit more tension between these 2. I feel like some things just kind of happened, and I would have loved if they would have talked about what's going on. I feel like I was the one that thought, well, we need to have the talk. And I think a few things, which probably is a bit more of personal preference, I didn't really get, or I thought it was a bit unrealistic. The same way that, this huge country star is in this small town, and no one really looks for her there, even though she is actually quite popular at the moment. I don't know. There were just a few things where I was I feel like it's a bit unrealistic, but the rest I really loved. I would give this actually a 4.25. It was a really great book, and I think Elsie Silver in general is quite an easy author to recommend to a lot of people. I mean, there is spice in here, but it's not, unnecessary spice every other page. It adds to the story, it adds to the relationship, the development, and I think she is a very great author and just, funny, and also always very quick to read. And then, as I said, I read this book to prepare for the new release for this series, and that was Wild Side. It's the green cover. I read that on my Kindle, and I really anticipated that book. I already kind of knew that I would love that because guess what? It has marriage of convenience, and that is one of my favorite tropes. I eat it up every single time, and of course I did with this one as well. But it was also because Elsie Silver, her writing is just so good, and I loved the tension for that couple. Actually, I think that was really well done, and I also liked how interesting the story itself was. So in this one, Tabitha actually becomes a mom because her sister unfortunately passed away, and there's talk about drug addiction and all of that. Look up the trigger warnings if that's something you want to know about beforehand. And she now has to take care of her nephew Milo, who was just honestly the cutest little boy, and Rice is there to take them away because he says that in the will of Tabitha's sister, she said that Rice should become the legal guardian for Milo, and that's why he's there. And Tabitha, when she finds out, just can't believe why her sister would say that, and obviously also wants to fight for Milo, and she thinks it would be best for Milo to stay close to her and also her parents, Milo's grandparents. And Rice is willing to see where it goes and if it's actually best for Milo. But the problem is that he's actually American, or I think he works there, and he can't just stay in Canada. So they have to get married and be in one house in order for both of them to sort of have legal guardianship over Milo and, you know, be parents to this little boy. And I ate that up, guys. Like, that plot was just written for me. I absolutely loved it. Another thing that I loved about the book is messy and gray characters. I think humans just are that way, you know. We're not just all good or all bad. Like, there is such a huge part in the middle, and that book definitely had characters like that. And I just really enjoyed how the book took that, how the characters dealt with that, and also that there wasn't like a single answer for that. I feel like everyone, you know, can make up their own mind about certain situations and things. I liked Wildside a little bit more, so I rated this 4.5 star. It wasn't quite a 5 star. And I also want to say that I'm sorry, but I'm not going to tell you what Rice's job is, because I feel like that is a bit of a mystery throughout the other books as well. But once I knew, it just not for me. It didn't give me the 5-star feeling, but I enjoyed that book a lot. And again, I think Elsie Silver is a great author. Then I finished Pretty Savage by Tammy Fisher, which was also on my monthly TBR, and I actually listened to that book because it's quite thick and I didn't want to bring it with me. And wow, guys, that book, unfortunately, it's only out in German, but please, if you're German out there and you're looking for really, you know, think of like Pretty Little Liars, think of the TV show Elite, think of Gossip Girl. If you want those vibes, that series is so good. By the end of the first book, I was super shocked, and I don't even know how I didn't like continue reading right away. But once I read the second book, I was like so amazed by everything, and she basically titled the trilogy, like each book, with the first one being the Book of Questions, the second one the Book of Answers, and the third book being the Book of Escalation. And I can tell you guys that that is true. Like, I love that I found out a lot in book 2, but it wasn't like resolved or anything. I freaking loved the romance plotline. Even though it was a side plot, I still enjoyed that so much. I love that we got another perspective, and there was just so much that I really enjoyed about that book. I think overall that it was in German, sometimes, I don't know, it takes me a bit out. It sounds weird because I'm German. How my mind thinks it's weird to read in German, I don't know, but I mainly read in English, so it is a bit of an adjustment, but I still really enjoyed this. Would I say that this book is realistic? Absolutely not. But for a book like that, I don't really care. It's super entertaining and exciting, and I definitely recommend that series if anyone is out there and wants to read a German book series. So I actually gave this one also a 4.5. You can see, pretty good reading one. And then I went straight into the third book and got that on my Kindle because, again, how that book ended, like those cliffhangers, I needed answers, or at least more answers. I needed things to be resolved, and I was super excited for the third book. And the third book definitely let me down. And now that the author actually said that she would have liked to have that book a bit longer, but she went through quite a lot of things in her personal life while writing the third book, so I also had that in mind. But I would definitely say that the third book would have benefited from just having a bit more. I think the pacing was off sometimes. I really started to hate the main character, especially at the beginning. I don't know, I feel like there could have been more clear cuts. I can't really go into too much detail, so I can't really give anything away. I just definitely didn't like a lot of the choices that were made and just how things got together. I still loved what we got, but I think also because the second book was so good and like gave me everything I wanted, that the third one was just such a letdown compared to that. I definitely would have wanted more romance. So I feel like with that feeling of just wanting a lot more, I actually gave this 2.75. I still 100% would recommend the whole series, especially if you want those Pretty Little Liars, Gossip Girl vibes. It is such a great trilogy. Next up, I read Sweet Temptation by Cora Riley. This was also my monthly TBR, and this is a very quick one. This has like 250 270 is 280 pages, so it's under 300 pages, but you could also read this on Kindle Unlimited. This was my first Cora Riley book, and I would say that she's a very well-established author for dark romance. I don't read a lot of dark romance. I got this gifted and I kind of had it on my like mental TBR because this is also Marriage of Convenience. I don't really know how to like recommend this because let's just say that the trope that he's older and she just turned 18 was such a big thing, and it made me super uncomfortable. Like I 100% would have loved if that wouldn't be the case. I think because of that a lot, like this is just unrealistic. I would say that besides that there is a big age gap and they're like mafia families, this book is not like super dark. It just more of like really boggled my mind why he would always say that she is so young, and some things like it made me really uncomfortable. And yeah, just how, you know, in this world women are seen and all of that, like for that I feel like I can't really recommend this. In terms of like my reading experience, I would say this was enjoyable and like fast paced. Like I got through this so quickly, and I feel like since this is dark romance, certain things like the age gap I can kind of just like, you know, ignore a bit more. If this would have been contemporary romance, this would have been so wrong, like a lot of things in here. But since, you know, we're in that morally gray area, it's fine. And if you want like a dark romance that, you know, isn't like super dark, I would say yes, go for something like this, because also it's under 300 pages. It is super quick to go through. It's not like the best well-written book ever. I feel like since I enjoy Marriage of Convenience, this was a good introduction to the author. And I also want to tell you a bit more, because it's not just Marriage of Convenience, but he's actually a single dad of 2, and therefore he's more or less not just in need of a wife but also a mother to his 2 children. And that's where I was like, this is all a bit unrealistic, because she is basically herself still a child. I would rate this probably like a 3-star. Just know that this dynamic between these 2 characters is not like in a contemporary romance. Then I read Double Apex by Josie Juniper, and you can see that on the cover we have a little quote by Abby Jimenez that said, "A spicy must-read for F1 fans and STEM nerds." So I was like, that sounds right up my alley, and got this just for this quote actually. And I also wanted to read it in March because, you know, F1 season started. The question is though, would I actually agree with Abby Jimenez here? I would say definitely this is a spicy book, and it's for F1 fans. I don't know about like STEM too much, and definitely to me this is not a must read. I think how the story was structured and told, it almost felt a bit clumsy. This went from we actually hate each other, or she hates him, to literally within 1 page, oh, I actually like you. And it just didn't really feel realistic that way, or that the enemies to lovers part was only, you know, in there so we could say that this book has the trope, but it wasn't actually enemies to lovers. If that would have been taken out, I feel like the book would have been a lot more coherent. The spice also happened quite early, so I feel like it definitely lacked tension afterwards. And I would say that the author tried to give us like emotional depth to both the characters and also the plot, but I just didn't really feel that way. Like I still felt kind of disconnected from both characters and their love story. I wasn't that invested in them and what they went through. And our main character Federa had so much potential, because she is actually the race engine for the driver Cosman, and she is a black cat, and I love characters like that usually. Sometimes I thought, maybe you're just mean, or maybe you're just rude, or maybe you just think too highly of yourself and, you know, everyone else is always at fault. And I didn't really like that. So I feel like she would have been usually a character that I would have loved, but in this one it was just not really written that way, where she was super likable. I would actually recommend this to people if they don't want a slow burn. Like this is the opposite of a slow burn. So I definitely think there is an audience out for this book, and I would also consider reading the second book in this series. It's just that I don't think it's a must read. The next up, and also the last book we're gonna talk about, because it's the last book that I finished this month, is The Devil Gets Us to You by Elizabeth O'Rourke. And wow, I finally read this book. I think this was already at least twice on my monthly TBR, and I never read this. And I don't really know why, because this is the 4th book of the Grumpy Devil series, and I loved every single book in that series. They're amazing romances, truly one of the best. It just didn't make sense that I put off reading this, but I think it was definitely due to the plot being accidental pregnancy, and that's just usually something I stay away from. However, if one author in one series can do it, it's Elizabeth O'Rourke. I love this book, and I truly didn't expect that. I almost kind of forced myself to read this because I was like, come on, it's on your monthly TBR, it's also only around like 300 pages, just read it. But after the first chapter, I was so hooked. I just really enjoy her writing, her character. There is so much tension, even though, you know, you have accidental pregnancy, so they've been intimate quite early on in the book, but it was still so much tension between these characters, and I just honestly think this is one of the best romance series out there. I would say compared to the other 3 books, this was my least favorite, but I would still give it a 4.75 because it was that amazing. I really enjoyed our main character, Keely, who definitely is more aloof, and you know, she doesn't want to settle down, and she just wants to be the light of the party every time, and doesn't really take herself too serious. And then you have Graham, who's very straightforward, always direct, very organized, and I really liked how realistic he reacted at the beginning of the book. He was just so great with her, but I just liked that he was a bit different from other heroes, and you know, a bit more direct, and wouldn't always say like the right thing, if that makes sense, and I really enjoyed that. So 100%, if you want a good romance that has emotional depth, that is spicy, that is also, all her books are around 300 pages, so it's not like a super long book, go to the series. I would definitely say these are perfect romances. So these were all the 7 books that I finished in March. Let's just congratulate myself on almost finishing my whole monthly TBR. I would appreciate if you leave a little clapping emoji in the comments, then I can also see you stayed until the end, and I'm grateful for that. So thanks for watching until the end, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, and also subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!